Welcome back to A Considered Life. Just got back from seeing The Sound of Freedom with my wife, and thought I'd make a short reaction video. Now, I know there's a lot of reaction videos out there that are going to look at, why the movie is being suppressed in the way it is, or giving the bad sort of slanted press. And I think there is something challenging for a movie like this for those who are sort of on the liberal woke side of the ideological spectrum. I've seen videos that reference, sort of this, political liberal elite that is, has an agenda to suppress a movie like this, and whatever. Leaving that aside, I think this movie does pose a challenge, and it's the challenge. It's a challenge in a very fundamentally ideological way, and the challenge is this. When you have certain ideas about victimization, and then you're confronted by a true story of real victimization, it causes you to adjust those standards, those ideas. When you have a notion of what bravery is, like you think it's brave to, speak your truth or something like that, and then you see a man commit a genuinely virtuous act, a genuinely brave, courageous act, risks his livelihood, his pension, his personal safety, genuine self-sacrifice, then all of the false or pseudo-sacrifice or pseudo-victimization or pseudo-bravery that we're met with oftentimes in the culture really is thrown to the wind. It's either shown as false, straightforwardly, or it's at least minimized to a degree where you think, yeah, I shouldn't be that morally outraged by these other things because I should genuinely be morally outraged by children that are sold as commodities for the pleasure of men, right? I have an analogy for this sort of comparison contrast. It actually emerges from my own experience. So my wife, when she was pregnant with or giving birth to my second oldest at that point hadn't turned. She wasn't head down. She was butt down. And so, in utero. And so my wife they had to do an emergency cesarean. And so, it's late at night. It's about, it's almost 11 o'clock at night when she has her surgery. So it's been a long day, and we're in the recovery room, and my little six-pound daughter is in my arms, and I'm sitting on this backless hospital stool. That'll come back into play in a minute. So my wife has struggled with nausea throughout the pregnancy, and there's a drug, I think it's Zofran, that you normally can take to ease or suppress this nausea. Well, my wife was one of those some small percentage that it actually did the opposite. It actually made her more nauseous. And so after her first trimester, we got her off Zofran or whatever. So about midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, she's got this little port in her arm for IV stuff. And she complains to the nurse that she's a little sick. She's not feeling well. So the nurse, trying to be helpful, pumps some Zofran into her little port, and my wife says, "Oh, no, that stuff makes me more nauseous." And the nurse goes, "Well, sorry, it wasn't on your chart." So now we know that we're in for a rough couple of hours. And during that time, it was a couple hours. So my wife is holding an ice pack across her incision area that had just been stapled shut. So she's holding an ice pack over her incision area. She's dry heaving into this bowl. And it's just this perfect storm of misery that she's going through. And while she's going through that, I'm trying to kind of help hold the ice pack when she's going through these periods of dry heaving. But at the same time, I'm holding my daughter. And at one point I start to think, my low back is starting to get sore. My back's a little sore sitting on this stool with I kind of hunched over for a couple hours. But do you think I'm going to say anything to my wife who's in the throes of just absolute misery that, the muscles in my low back are getting a little sore? No, because by comparison, my discomfort pales in comparison to her absolute misery that she's experiencing. That's kind of the analogy of what's going on, I think, with The Sound of Freedom. Here we have this wasn't a story that's a parable that was cooked up in a far right Christian writer's room. This is a true story. It's based on actual events that happened in the recent past, and it's based on a man who is actually doing something sacrificial and brave. It's about people that are actually experiencing a very real and deep traumatic victimization in their lives, being stolen, kidnapped from their families, and sold as commodities for a trafficking ring, right? So that, I think, if we strip away all the conspiracy theory stuff, that is, I think, the fundamental ideological challenge to the left about their notions of bravery and victimhood and courage and things like that. Being faced with a very real world example of those things that make some of these ideas, it shows them to be the kind of superficial, compared to somebody stealing a child and victimizing them. If someone calls me by the wrong name or uses the wrong pronoun, it shouldn't evoke the same level of outrage, because then it shows that we value these the same way, and they shouldn't be valued the same way. They should be we should moderate our value and our the moral weight of these things differently, because they are different. And that's, I think, one of the things that this movie does. And I, having considered it that way, I just wanted to make this short video. I know I haven't been producing a lot of content lately. It's the summertime. We've been traveling. So hopefully we'll get back to more of a steady stream. And I think I'm going to add a survey to the community tab, or to kind of get some direction in where these videos should go in the future. But that's it for now. And based on your feedback to the survey that I'll give, that'll kind of guide where this channel goes in terms of content in the near future.